Hello, everyone. I got the camera to work, so we're good to go. All right. Since you guys are here, I'll give you a sneak peek into the 2024 state t-shirt. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we had a t-shirt design contest, and then I was able to take their ideas and our logos and sort of mold it into this. So I think it looks fantastic. Um, It's got a lot of color in it, right? More colors and everything. So compared to previous t-shirts. So we're very proud of that. Those will be available at the promo table in Evans in the lobby if you're interested in purchasing one for yourself or your kids or whatever. All right, we're just a couple of minutes early, so we'll wait on everyone to get here. And I will once again endeavor to figure out how to share my screen. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. uh, for this contest direction um, presentation on how to and everything. Your job is the most crucial for our entire contest. So we do appreciate you taking this hour to come and learn more about this. Feel free to ask questions at any time during this. Let me see if I can turn on the chat. All right, there's the chat box. So I'll be monitoring that as well. Or feel free to unmute yourself. Uh, Looks like we got about 20 people in here. So welcome everybody. It's so great to have you here to learn more about how to run a contest for PSIA State. So, and for those of you who were late, here is the t-shirt for this year. Look at that. It's got the owl and everything. So we're very happy with the t-shirts. All right. Let's take a look. So the agenda is to review what materials will be in your packet, an overview on how to conduct the contest, what's in the rosters, and then if you have any questions, we'll provide you with some of those answers. But basically, the information and the materials that you get in your packet depend on the contest that you are conducting. If it is an objective contest, so ones with tests and answer keys and answer sheets and things, you'll get the individual contest director checklist, the instructions for the contest that come straight out of the handbook. You can also go ahead and download those if you want to have a sneak preview at those. Just go to the PSIA website, psiaacademics.org, click on resources, contest, and then the contest that you are conducting. And you'll pull up the information directly from the handbook. You will have a roster of the contestants and the alternates that can replace those contestants. When you write on the contestant roster, please use a pencil because mistakes do happen. We have to change things. You'll have a contest evaluation form that'll be green. The contestant ID labels for your contest. The quiet please sign that you'll give to the hall monitor if you have one. Not every contest has a hall monitor. We tried to place them strategically throughout the halls so that they can sort of monitor a whole section instead of just one right after the other in the individual rooms. And then you'll have a small manila envelope with a pencil and paper clips for clipping materials together. You'll also have a sealed test packet and a sealed answer keys packet. The sealed items should stay sealed, the test until you get to the contest room, the answer keys until you get to the grading room. Mhm. If you are conducting a subjective contest like on-site drawing or ready writing, you'll have much of the same items, individual contest director checklist, instructions from the handbook, the roster, the contest evaluation form, the ID labels, the quiet please sign, the small manila envelope with the pencils and the paper clips, and pins for your graders or judges, and then evaluation sheets to use for your judges. You'll have one evaluation sheet for each contestant, and then the judges' ballots to help them sort of come up with their rankings and stuff. Let's see. This should say speech contest director packets. So the speech contest director packets has the checklist, the instructions from the handbook, the roster, the green evaluation form, contestant ID labels. If it's prelims, if it's finals, you'll need to write the contestants' names on their evaluations. The quiet please sign to give to the hall monitor. The small manila envelope with pencil and paper clips. The ranking sheets and the speech ranking instructions. The speaking order cards. So each speaker in a speech contest has a speaking order, a speaking letter, and you give them that letter when they check in with you at the beginning of the contest. Those letters go from A through I. And then you'll have a 30-second remaining card for timing. Once you reach 30 seconds from the end of the contest where if they go over, you hold up the 30-second card. For storytelling, they don't have a penalty for going over, but you sort of want them to wind up their story. And so theirs is a gentle little, to be with a stop sign. And it says 30 seconds on it. But for the other speech events, it is a disqualification if they go over. All right, so here's how the roster would look. What you have at the top of the roster is information on where the contest is being held and at what times. And you've got little check boxes so that you can check off whenever you've completed each of those different things. That will help communicate to the people in the tab room that we finished these portions of the contest so far. The section, the first one there, section, that's the actual contest itself. Here it has the number of contestants that you're expected to have. And so if you're doing an objective contest, you want to, when you get into the contest room, open the contest test packet, go through each test to make sure that the test has been printed correctly, that it's not missing like a whole section or a whole page or something like that. And your assistant director can help you with this. And to make sure you have enough tests for the number of people that are on your roster. This section is the list of personnel who are designated to help you with the contest. You are the contest director. Your assistant should join you for all 3 phases of the contest: the contest itself section, the grading, and the verification. The graders only join you for the grading portion. They don't come to the contest and they don't come to verification. Let's take a look at contestant number 507, Reginald Barkley. He has a little note that says arrive from speech. This means this student has been given a dual entry, that he is doing some kind of speech contest, and it usually says what speech contest it is: oral, interpretation, modern oratory, whatever it is. And that if this student happens to be running late, you do allow this student to come into the contest room even after you have shut the door. They have the special permission to do that. The other contestants do not have that permission. Let's suppose also that Jordy LaForge does not show up to the contest. So after you do the roll call the second time, and Jordy LaForge still has okay, so the question from the chat: would they be on a separate timing from the rest of the students? No. Okay, so I think the question is this from Megan. Um, if the dual entry student comes in late, do they get extra time? And the answer is no. They don't get extra time, but they do get the opportunity to finish up whatever has been started. Ideally, since the 30-minute contest really have an hour window to complete, you can kind of slow roll the process. If you know that you're waiting for another student, you can sort of hold the contest up a little bit, not too much, but you can hold it up just a little bit. Yeah. Everyone, yeah. Yeah. Let's say that this contest starts at 12:30, okay? Um, and the speech contest started at 12:30 as well. Then that contestant would be given a dual entry so that they would go first during the speech contest. So that part will take probably about 10 minutes. So you can sort of slow roll it a little bit and give that student time to show up. Okay. But it has to be a reasonable amount of time. Uh, if the speech contest was at 12:30, this contest started at 12:30, and the student didn't show up until 1 o'clock, that's too late. They can still finish whatever part of the test they have going on, whatever portion of the test is remaining, but they haven't made it there in a good faith effort to be there on time. Now, it may not be the student's fault, and it's just unfortunate the way that sometimes happens. Most likely in a contest that would be like this, the speech contest would have probably been at 11:30, and this is just sort of a warning that he might be coming in late, and usually they get there on time. Since we are going to Texas State University this year, we do have the advantage that we are only in two different buildings, and those buildings are right next to each other. So there isn't this panic that a student's going to have to go all the way across campus. No, they're going to have to go maybe from one building to the other building, which is right there, and go upstairs, and that's probably it. Um, so there's not that panic. We are relieved with that this year, and there's no crossing a street either. So they don't have to cross the street to get from one side of campus to the other. It's just all right there. But yeah, you want to try to give these students that are dual entered um, a little leeway if you can. So you can hold the contest a little bit, sort of call the roll slowly, but you can't hold it too long because you really want to try to finish at about no later than the 50-minute mark of a 1 hour contest. A lot of times you'll be finished earlier than that, but try to wait for the dual entry students if you can. All right, so we were looking at contestant 504, Jordy LaForge. Jordy couldn't make it today, and so we have to replace Jordy. So you go to the door after the second roll call, and you call for the alternate. The alternate here is alternate number 1, Bob Crane. So you say, is Bob Crane here from the Doug Ray Test School? And if Bob is here, then Bob gets to take Jordy's place. So you would write in Bob Crane for Jordy. You would change the school if it's a different school. This is the same school, but a lot of times it'll be a different school. And then the alternate gets seated. If you have a student that shows up to your contest that's not on the roster, but they are an alternate, and they think that they're supposed to take the test, give us a call in the tab room. You'll have that information on the checklist, and we can verify whether or not they're supposed to take the test or not. Because what you might have happen is the regular contestant is there and the alternate is there. The alternate doesn't take the test if the regular contestant is there. But you can give us a call and we can verify that for you pretty quick, because we'll have the district results from the districts to see which student should be seated and which one shouldn't be seated, and see if there's some sort of miscommunication or whatever happened with that. But in general, we do not let the alternates take the test, even if they show up, unless they are actually replacing a contestant who is not there. Like Jordy has been replaced by Bob Crane. So, all right. So when you do the roster, use a pencil only, because there's lots of mistakes, a lot of fixing. Sometimes the scores are incorrect. Sometimes the places are incorrect. We have to fix all that. So use pencil. We'll provide you with the pencil. When you write down the ties, you skip the next place or places that would have been filled in by those tied people had they not been tied. If you have a student that's absent, just write ABS in the score. If you have a disqualifying situation, check with me first, and then we'll put DQ on the roster. You write the scores for all students. Every score gets written down and put in the computer eventually. But you only want to rank the top 10. And then when you do the ranking, you do not need to write the ordinal suffix, the first or second or third. Just write 1, 2, 3, etc. So let's take a look at an example here. So suppose that these are the scores, and you've written them down in pencil. You look for the top score. The top score is 108, so that would be a 1. The second place score, the next highest one, would be 96. The next place score would be an 84, but there's two 84s, so that's a third place tie. So you would write 3 and tie, and that lets me know that you know that there's a tie for third place. And then, of course, you see that there is no 4 because we skipped 4. It was taken up by the third place tie. 5, 6, 7, 8, and you rank through the top 10 or no more than 10. Okay, questions on how to work with the roster. The list of people at the top, they should all report to you except for standby judges. Standby judges report directly to the tab room. So, of course, you wouldn't have a standby judge on an objective, but it's the same concept. When you do the contest evaluation sheet at the end of the contest, after verification, you'll make a note of any corrections that we had to make to the answer key, but you'll also make a note of any person who failed to show up and what school they were from, or if someone abandoned the position. For example, if someone says, I can only be here for the contest, and I can't be here for the grading part or the verification part, that's abandonment. You make sure that gets marked down. Schools receive penalty points for that, and if they get too many penalty points, they get put on probation or worse for next year. So we have that. Okay. Are you allowed to have ties? In objective contest, yes, we can have ties. In subjective and speech contest, you are not allowed to have any ties. No ties at all. So make sure that all the ties are broken. With subjective contest, for example, ready writing, The judges confer with each other on what the ranking should be. Do not let the judges convince you that these two were so good we can't bear to give one of them first place and one of them second place. We want to give them both first place. That is not going to happen. So do not let that happen. That is your job to make sure that doesn't happen. For speech contests, we cannot have ties either. There are ways to break ties, and we will talk about that momentarily. So if you have an objective contest, here's parts of items that are in the checklist. So after you have graded the test, but while you're still in the grading room, you go ahead and complete the roster in pencil with all the scores and rank the top 10. You paper clip the contestant answer sheet to the test with an answer key, right? So those three things go together. And you paperclip those. You'll have a label with the contestant name and school on it, and you'll put that in the space provided. But the contestant gets a copy of their test back, not just any test, their test, their contestant answer sheet, and the answer key. And then when you go to verification, you'll just pass that packet out to each kid. Use the labels. And in some of the contests, you can put the labels on the test before the test if you want. In some contests, you have to put on the labels after the grading because the test itself is where the answers are put. And you don't want to identify the individual contestant to the grader before the grading is done. So for example, on the number sense test, the students write on the number sense test itself. So that one you must put the label on afterwards. For the math test, you can put the label on the test booklet itself because the graders never see the test booklet. The graders only see the contestant answer sheet and the answer key. And they don't see the identifying mark from the student. So you can do that before, or you can do it afterwards. It doesn't matter. When you return to the tab room after you've completed the roster, you need to have me or Ellen or Heather review the results. We just go through and we double check to make sure that the rankings are in the right spot and the ties have been adequately accounted for and all that sort of stuff. Then we will issue you the medals and the qualifying ribbons. Every student that comes to state for each contest will get either a medal or a ribbon. Period. They walk away with something for being here. So they either going to get a ribbon, even if they get disqualified, they still get the ribbon for being a state qualifier. Now the key here is you don't write on the ribbons yet. That takes a lot of time, and you could be writing wrong information because remember, you have to go to verification. And during verification, that is when the students get to look at their test and how it was graded. And you've already clipped this together because you did it before you came back to the tab room while you're still in the grading room. You can have your assistant help you do that. You can have the graders help you do that. We don't care, whatever. And then you pass that out. As soon as the last one is passed out, that's when the 15 minutes start. And you give them the full 15 minutes to look over and ask questions about why this item was graded the way it is, to contest an item and say, well, I think the answer is 46 instead of 48. And then y'all work it out and call the tab room and we help you work it out. We want to make sure everybody is okay with the answer that they come up with. But yeah, call the tab room. We can help you with contesting questions if it's not something that you can easily answer. Like if the question was, this was a B, I wrote a B and the graders counted it wrong. Well, you can tell them, you can look at it and you say, well, we thought it was a D. So we counted it wrong because it looks like a D. All right. Those are the kinds of things that you as a contest director and your assistant director have been in the grading room and helped with the grading, and those issues have come up and you've already talked about it and you've already declared and you say, this student wrote a D. We think that this letter written as it's written is a D. We're counting it as a D and we're counting it wrong because the answer is really a B. That kind of thing you just go with. But if it's a question about an item's veracity, like is this the correct answer, then that we can help you with that in the tab room, and we should do that. After the 15 minutes are up, you collect all the test answer sheets and contestant answer sheets. You ask the contestants to place them back with the paper clip, back together with whatever page has the label on top, and you have them turn that back in. If they don't turn it in and it's not accounted for, it results in their disqualification. This is the weekend where all the test materials come back to PSIA because we use the same test for the single A meet in 2 weeks. So we don't want the test being leaked and other schools getting access to the test before that. After the 15 minutes are over and all the questions that have been brought up during that 15 minutes have been resolved, then those results are final. Now, you could have a situation during verification where it is determined that an answer was incorrect on the answer key, and then we have to regrade it. And so you have to do sort of a quick regrade right there on the spot, adjusting the scores. You do give a little time for that to make sure that that gets done. But after that, then the results are final. You announce and pass out the qualifier ribbons for the contestants who did not place. So we do announce them. We congratulate them on making it to state. Here are the state qualifiers, and here's Bob from whatever school. And then you announce the medal winners one at a time, starting in 6th place and then going up to 1st place. Now, there's an important difference here. During the actual 15-minute verification, there's no photography or videography allowed, and the contestants are only allowed to have one adult sponsor per contestant. After verification, you can bring in other people, announce it at the door. Everyone else can come in to watch the awards ceremony because you do the awards ceremony in the actual classroom during verification, after verification. This may be different from the way you've seen it done at district, where they have a stage and everybody goes back into the auditorium or cafeteria and they announce the awards there. Here we do the awards immediately following verification in each individual classroom because we don't have a central space where all the schools are hanging out or anything. You do allow photography for the award ceremony, but we cannot allow photography of the test because, again, the test questions are going to be used in 2 weeks. If you have a ribbon that is unclaimed, please have your assistant director mark the student's name, school, and the event on that ribbon. And then when you bring it back to the tab room, we will put it in the school's envelope. If you have an unclaimed medal, make a note on the roster that this person needs to get a medal. You can do that out to the right side where the name is. And so when you come back to the tab room, ask one of the tab room assistants for a label, and then you can mark that on the back of the label. And then we'll put that ribbon, that medal in the envelope for the schools. So remember, the contestants for this contest do not get to keep any of their test or answer keys. They do get to keep their ribbons and their medals. If a student doesn't show up to verification, they forfeit their right to challenge any of the questions. But if they do win a ribbon or a medal and another person from that school is there and says, I'm going to be seeing him later on this afternoon, can I give it to him? You say yes, because medals are heavy and they cost a lot to ship. So give away as many medals and ribbons as you can. All right. After verification, return to the tab room, Derek 326, with the green contest evaluation form indicating absent workers and how the contest went, if there were any problems. The roster completed in pencil with all the scores. That goes to me, Ellen, or Heather. And mention to us that verification is over, because I tell you, it gets crazy in the tab room. Sometimes I don't even know what's going on. I may have seen you 35 minutes ago and know exactly what was going on then. And 35 minutes later, I don't even know who you are. I will forget who you are. It's absolutely insane what happens in the tab room. So that's why you got to wear your badge. Um, make sure you sign the director's checklist and turn that into us. Sign the roster, turn that into us. Label any unused awards, as I mentioned before. The ribbons you can write on the back, the medals we'll have little stickers for. And you return all the materials, and we'll have assistants in there that will help you place them in the designated baskets. And then you go to the hospitality room and have a snack. And that's important. Okay, any questions over objective contest?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, hang on, let me turn up the volume here. Go ahead.
So if a student needs to use the bathroom, like some sort of emergency, is that something where you can let them leave the room and say whatever you've written down is all you're going to get, or
That's right.
are they disqualified if they leave? How does that work?
Yeah, if it's an emergency, certainly you let them leave, but they can't come back. And so they essentially just sort of forfeit the rest of their time or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um, and that's a good question. Yeah, what happens if they have to leave? And you can quietly tell them, if you leave, I cannot let you back in. And so if it's a real, sometimes what students think are emergencies are not exactly emergencies, right? Sometimes they are, right? Sometimes there are definite emergencies and the student does need to leave, and that's unfortunate, but they do give up the right to complete the contest. Um, that does bring up another subject that I did want to touch on is, when should you stop a contestant from doing something in the contest that you believe is a disqualification? And the answer is, you should not. Even if you believe that something the contestant is doing is going to result in a disqualification, just make a little note of it, either on paper or mentally or in your cell phone, and address it later. There was an incident several years ago, 20 years ago, with UIL, and UIL has different rules. Okay, so take that into consideration with this story. But the contest director was directing number sense, and she noticed that the contestant was not using a blue pen. So she took the test away from the contestant because he was going to be disqualified for not using a blue pen. It turns out that UIL does not have the blue pen rule. That is a rule for us. That is a rule for TMSCA, for other organizations, but not UIL. And the contest director stopped the contestant from taking the test and finishing the test because she thought it would be a disqualification. Then she asked, well, what can I do to fix this? Because it was my fault. And the unfortunate answer there was nothing. You deprived the contestant of the time to take the test. He'd already seen the test. It's not fair for him to go back now and have more time. And you don't even know how much time he would have had left. He can't start the test over because he's already seen half the test or whatever. And that contestant was just out of luck. And that is the kind of situation we must avoid. Unless it is some kind of emergency, you do not stop the contest for the contestant or stop the contestant from competing in the contest. We'll use your good judgment on what is a valid emergency. Like the contestant is bleeding or something, or they've passed out or something like that, right? Um, you have an assistant director there that can help you decide that as well. But use your good judgment on things like that. In general, let the contest play out, uh, especially with minor inconveniences like the contestant is um, using the wrong color pin or something like that. That will be handled later. But just make a note of it. Um, when you seat the contestants in the classroom, ask them to sit away from students that are from their own school and try to get them to sit as far apart as possible. Do not be afraid to tell a contestant, hey, I need you to move over one seat and you to move over two seats and this and that. Um, we have had some instances this district season of students looking on other students' paper. And I know we like to think that that doesn't happen because all our kids are great, but it has happened. It will happen. And so we want to make sure that we avoid that if possible by sitting them as far apart as possible. You may not have the luxury of doing that in some of these contest rooms because they may be too small. But what you can do is the ones that are further back away from you in the back of the classroom, make sure those are split up as far apart as possible. And if you have to put people side by side, you put them right in front where you're standing right there and you watch them like a hawk. We have a comment from Leslie Campbell. At the district meet, I also had students raise their hand above their heads so I could check for smartwatches. And I asked them to remove if they still had them on. Very good. Perfect. Yeah, they're not allowed to have their cell phones, smartwatches, or computers on their desk. So have them place that under their seat. Have them silence those instruments uh, so that they cannot have access to outside information. Very good.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm doing vocabulary and I was reading through the information and I was a little confused because it seemed like it said when you pass out the tests to put them face up
Yes.
and then you explain some things before you start the time and it that just seemed a little counterintuitive to me since
Mhm.
some kids would have the test sooner than others as I'm walking out passing and then talking through.
Well,
Some of those
they don't start the test when you're passing it
yeah,
out,
but they can go ahead and see it.
but it has a cover sheet.
Oh, that's what I missed. Okay,
Yeah,
I figured I
yeah,
was missing something.
yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. They all have a cover sheet. Um, Here's an example. So we have a student who is visually impaired. So we have this version for him that's the enlarged version. So, but this is kind of what they look like. This is
Okay.
what passing it face up looks like.
Okay, thank you. That helps. I
Yeah,
figured I was missing something
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. And in some of the tests, for example, even in this test right here, even after the cover sheet, there's a blank sheet. And so they can't even really look at the cover and see through it because there's an extra sheet in there blocking the questions from below it. So that's in most cases. Maybe not every case. So but yeah. Yeah, you pass it out face up. Then you do the roster, and when you call the roster, you'll say, okay, Tim Green will raise their hand and you will tell them you are contestant 406. And that's when the student writes 406 on the test under contestant ID. Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, let's take a look at the ranking procedure. Let's see here. Is this correct? Did I skip something? Okay, yes. Let me move these down here. Okay. Very good. All right. So for subjective and speech events, there are different procedures for how to run each of those contests that you'll find in the checklist. But here's some of the overarching ideas behind running these contests. So after you do the contest and the judging, but before you dismiss the judges, you have to determine the ranks, at least in part, right? So for creative writing, ready writing, and on-site drawing, the judges do get to form a conference to decide who are the top 10. For on-site drawing, the way that works is there are 3 judges total. One judge is the head judge for grade 6, one judge is the head judge for grade 7, and one judge is the head judge for grade 8. Those 3 judges go to their 3 rooms where they're the head judge, and they do preliminary evaluations of all of the artwork. and they whittle it down to the top 10. Then, after all of the top 10 nominations have been done, then they get together and they go room to room and determine, all right, here are the top 10. Which ranks do we actually want to give these top 10 students? So the judge may think that these are the top 10 students, but not necessarily in that order. And then that's when they conference and they write comments and things for each of those students about which one is number one, which one is number first place, second place, third place, and stuff like that. But the first judge whittles it down to the top 10. For speech, and that's the same thing for ready writing and creative writing. Each judge in ready writing and creative writing read all the essays, and then they get together and decide what the top 10 were going to be. So that's the difference. They do conference. For speech, the judges do not conference. The speech judges give their individual ranks for all the contestants along with their evaluations. They turn that into the contest director, and then the contest director will use the ranking procedure, which is what I will show you at the end of this, to determine what the ranks are. There's a system of indices that have to be written down while the contest director is still in the classroom with the judges. And the reason that the contest director has to be there is because of a three-way tie. If you have a three-way tie where there are three ranks that the three judges split up equitably among three different contestants, there is no mathematical way of breaking that tie. So in that case, and in that case alone, the judges should conference to determine which of those three contestants is the higher rank, the middle rank, and the lower rank. But only if it's a three-way tie. As a contest director, you will know when you have a three-way tie when you write down the indices if you have the same index written three different times. And so that's the telltale sign that you have a three-way tie. If you have a two-way tie, no problem. We can break that in the computer by hand, whatever we need to do. A three-way tie, we can't break mathematically, but a two-way tie, we can. All right. So after the contest, you complete the contest roster with all the ranks posted in pencil. You'll paper clip all the evaluation sheets together for each contestant, and you'll use the labels. You'll have labels if it's a prelim contest. You won't have labels for a finals contest because we don't know who's going to finals when we print the labels. Come back to the tab room. Have your results reviewed by me, Ellen, or Heather. Since it's speech, probably Ellen will be the one that will want to see that, but I can certainly help and Heather can certainly help. But Ellen likes to coordinate all of the speech stuff together. An assistant will issue the medals or the state qualifier ribbons, depending on how many positions in your roster. If it is a preliminary round, you will get qualifying ribbons for the contestants who do not advance to the finals. You won't have any medals. And the trick here is it's sort of a signal that you will take the state qualifier ribbon and you will attach it to the evaluations of the contestants who did not advance. In other words, it's sort of a sign of congratulations on being here, but this is as far as you're going. Here's your ribbon. And then if they don't get a ribbon, then they're the ones that are advancing to the finals. You also make that abundantly clear by announcing who is advancing to the next round. Disqualified students still receive a ribbon. Don't write on the ribbons unless you have to, which is when the students don't return. So even if you have the packet and the student didn't show up for the evaluation return and the ribbon is attached to that, you'll still want to go ahead and write that student's name, school, and contest on the back of the ribbon because the ribbons tend to get separated from the rest of the material when they go in the envelope. For the evaluation return and the awards, you pass out the evaluations clipped together with the help of your assistant. There is no verification. So in other words, they can't, excuse me, they can't contest the rankings of the judges. That is final. For ready writing and creative writing, the essays have to be returned because this is not the last weekend of the contest. The on-site drawing, those can go home with the contestants. For the preliminary speech rounds, you attach the qualifying ribbon to the evaluations. You announce the following contestants have advanced to finals, and you list those contestants. And the number that you have to say that are advancing is written on the packet. That number depends on how many sections are in the contest. In most of our speech contests, there are 3 preliminary sections, meaning the top 2 advance, because we need to get 6 total contestants in the finals. So 3 sections, 2 contestants advance, giving us 6. In storytelling, there are 2 sections. So the top 3 advance to finals, giving us 6 in the finals round. You do not mention what the rank of the individual contestants were from the preliminary round. It's either they advanced or they didn't, and then that's it. If you're doing a speech round, a finals speech round, then you're probably just going to be giving out medals. But in the case where a student made it to finals and then went over time or something, did something to disqualify themselves, they no longer get a medal. They go back to getting a qualifying ribbon. So mention that scenario in the tab room when you come to pick up medals, that one student disqualified themselves for this reason, and therefore they don't get a medal, they just get the ribbon. But then announce 6th through 1st, if you have a 6th still, right? You most likely do, but it's happened. And drape the medals over the students, allow photography, and then write on the roster any unclaimed medals when you come back to the tab room, and we'll put those in the appropriate spots. Should we announce before we give the evaluations? No, I would go ahead and do the evaluations and then announce the rankings. Let's see here. After the evaluation return, come back to the tab room, fill out the green evaluation sheet indicating absent workers, the contest roster completed in pencil with all ranks, scores, ranks. The contest director checklist signed. There's also another part to the speech contest that we want to have with the roster. So what we're going to do this year is when you turn in the roster, we're going to staple that to the ranking sheet that you have filled out to come up with the ranks and the 3 judges' ballots. We want to staple all those together. Too often during the district season this year, there was some question, some controversy, where we needed to go back and look at the original judges' ballots to determine the correct ranks and the orders and everything else. And it was a problem because those pieces of paper were being stored in different places. What we're going to do this time at state is we're going to staple all that together, and it's all going to go in my notebook. So that way, if there's any question about what's on the roster, I can look at the ranking sheet right below it. If there's any question about what's on the ranking sheet, then I can look at the 3 judges' ballots right below that. And that'll solve all the problems. I hope. We'll see. But we're going to have all that turned in for speech. Label unused awards. Like I said, mention to the tab room people that we need some labels and stuff. And return all the other information that was part of the contest. There'll be these little purple baskets. The overriding principle about returning things is you sort of come to the tab room and you pick up your packet, and you do the contest, and then when you come back, you should just turn everything back in, and we'll help you sort it out and put it where it needs to go. You start with nothing, and then you leave with nothing, right? Sort of thing. You shouldn't have anything else to take home with you. In the subjective contest, like ready writing, the judges' evaluations are with your packet. In speech, we hold the judges' packets until the judges come and pick them up. And that is so that we know in the tab room that the judge is here and able to perform. And so if we just sent the judges' packets with the contest director, we wouldn't know that we needed to find a fill-in for that judge's position, because that's what happens is if we have a 10 o'clock contest. When it gets to be about 9:45, we start looking for that judge. And if that judge doesn't come within, say, 10 minutes, then we go ahead and give that packet to another person, the standby judge, so that they can go and do the contest. So that's, we really want the judges to come by and pick up their packets a little bit earlier than 15 minutes, if possible. That would sort of save us the grief of having all that. All right, so here's the ranking procedure for speech. So let's suppose that this is the sheet that you will have as a contest director. The judge is going to bring in a sheet that looks like this, and they're going to have this filled out with the topic, and you as a contest director can fill this in later if you need to, but the topic, or if it's oral interpretation, the title of the piece, and things like this. Impromptu is like the subject of the impromptu speech. They will make little notes here that help identify which speaker it is. Okay. The judge has provided these ranks. One thing you want to check is to make sure the ranks go from 1 up to the highest number of contestants you have. So this had 6 contestants. So this goes from 1 to 6 with no repeated ranks. So just like you can't have ties in speech, the judges aren't allowed to give ties in their rankings as well. They have to be unique ranks. You might want to also mention, after all the speakers have gone, that our ranking system uses 1 as the best rank and the highest number as the lowest rank, right? Let's see. We have a question from the chat. Also clarifying from earlier. It says, if a student is dual enrolled and needs to leave the contest early, they're the first presenter, and then they need to leave to attend another event. They should not be penalized or graded any differently because of leaving a contest. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So, and that really doesn't have to be made a big deal. The judges should know that students are going to be dual enrolled, and you shouldn't have to, as a contest director, you shouldn't have to explain it to anybody else. When the student finishes, just tell them that they are dual enrolled and that they can leave to go to this other contest. It shouldn't matter to the judges. If you do think it does matter to the judges why the contestant is leaving, you can mention that they had permission to leave. If that's something you want to mention in the speech contest, this student has permission to leave, and then point to the door, and then they can leave. But it shouldn't matter to the judges. These judges should be well aware that dual entry is a thing, that students have to go to different contests, and so it should be fine. So, okay. All right, so here are the ranks from this judge. And so we put those here. Judge 1. Now try to match up Judge 1, Judge 2, and Judge 3 as it is listed on your roster. So that way, if there's any question about which judge wrote which comments, we can sort that out as well. Another judge brings in this evaluation, and we have these results over here. And Judge 3 has a 1, 4, 2, 3, 6, 5, and we put that over here. All right. Now, the judges are still in the room when you need to do these computations, so you have to hold them a little bit. But the next step is to rewrite all of these numbers in order from best to worst. So remember, best is the low numbers, worst is the high numbers. So write the rankings from best to worst. And so 1, 2, 4 is the first one. 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 2, that's right. 3, 3, 5. So you just write these in numerical order, least to greatest, which is in ranking terms, best to worst. Then you look at the reversed index chart, the reverse table speech ranking list, and assign the index to each contestant. So this will be in your packet. And you just look at this, you just look for this number right here. So 1, 2, 4 is over here on the list. And it has an index of 13. And so you write an index of 13. And you move on to the next one. 4, 5, 6. You look for 4, 5, 6. It's over here. That has an index of 114. And you write 114. And you do that for all of your contestants, and you write down their index number. Okay. What this index number does is it has already taken account which ranks would beat which other ranks. And so this is the list. And so the lower the index number, the better the position in the rank. What you're looking for right now in doing all these indices in the classroom is to determine if you have any 3 indices that are the same. Since all these indices are different, there is no 3-way tie. And so now you just rank each of these contestants. The lower the index, the lower the rank, the better the rank, let's say. So you have an index of a 2. So the lower index equals the best rank. So you have an index of 2. So that's first place. The next lowest index is 13. So that's second place. Looking for the next lowest one, 60 is third, 67 is 4, 94 is 5, and 114 is 6. And so these are the ranks that you would then transfer to the roster. So this needs to be done in the classroom. This you can wait to do as needed, or if you need extra help. Here's why, because this may sound like it's a little bit different than the way we've done things in the past. Too many times this district season, we had the 3-way tie. And we weren't able to break it without someone looking at the results, looking at the evaluations from the judges who had not seen the pieces, who had not seen the students perform, but they're just looking at the pieces and saying, okay, well, this judge said this, and based on what this judge wrote, then this must be the better one. This must be the best one. This is the middle one, and that's the lowest one. And that's in the rules to do that, but it's not the ideal way to do it. The ideal way to do it is to have the judges conference when there is a 3-way tie. If there's no tie, the judges don't get to conference, period. No conferencing. But if there is a 3-way tie, they get to conference, but only for the purpose of breaking the 3-way tie. The other ranks have to come out exactly as they are, whatever they would be without the tie, sort of in the middle of all that. Okay, so I hope that's clear. But yes, basically do the index before you leave, see if there's a 3-way tie. If there is, have the judges conference to break the tie. And you would just say, let's just say, for example, it was A, B, and C. You say to the judges, we have a 3-way tie between speakers A, B, and C. And I need you to break the tie, and y'all can talk about it. And so everybody else is out of the room at this point, right? The judges conference only with you and maybe the assistant director. Everybody else has to leave the room. It's a private deal. All right. That's it. This program could not exist without you. You're essential. We need your help. thank you for being here tonight. I hope that you like this new way that we're doing contest direction training, as opposed to doing it on Saturday morning when everybody's sort of in a rush. Hopefully we got to answer some of your questions. I'll stay on for a few more minutes to answer questions that you may have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It does take a ton of work. Thank you, appreciate it. We've got all the tests printed. I've got all the answer keys printed, but I don't have all of the contestant answer sheets printed. That's what's next. So probably do that a little bit later tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, thank y'all for your help. Feel free to ask questions during the day. When you get the contest director's checklist, it'll have my phone number at the top. So feel free to call or text during the day if you have any questions over what you're doing. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So thank you. It is better than doing it on a Saturday morning. Saturday mornings, I'm still half asleep until about 9:30. So I'm pretty tired right now too, but I'm awake. So that's good. So, all right, I'll stay on for a few more minutes to answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, thank you so much. If you like tonight's, come back tomorrow. I'll do this again. You don't have to, I'm kidding. But yeah, if you want to, if you need any more help, just let us know and we'll be happy to help you as much as we can. All right. Thanks. I'll stay on for a few minutes, but otherwise, good night, everybody. See you Saturday. Have a great night. Drive safe to San Marcos. All right. Good night, everybody.